Okay, welcome everybody to today's live webinar, Intro to Microsoft Excel, Part 2. We had Part 1 last week. Of course, if you weren't able to attend, we'll have that video up on YouTube shortly. And of course, you can always check out our other classes on YouTube as well. But today joining us is Susan Winkler. She's our technology librarian. She will do the teaching and demonstration portion. My name is Rebecca Van Dusen. I'm a library associate here at the Champaign Public Library. I will help in the background to answer any questions that you might have. So please feel free to use those chat button and raise hand button down at the bottom of your Zoom screen. Those will help you relay those questions to me, and I can also help pass those to Susan. So the main thing is don't be afraid to ask questions. We're here to help answer them. So at any time during the webinar, feel free to write in the chat. If you want to speak your question out loud rather than writing it in the chat, feel free to use the raise hand button. We use that pretty often. I know sometimes it's harder for me to type out my whole question. It's easier to just say it out loud. So that's what the raise hand button is for. And then we will turn on your microphone from our side. So don't worry about all that stuff. And then I think that's pretty much covered everything. I will put the handouts link in our chat so that you'll have the access to the slides that we're covering today. Yeah, did I miss anything? I feel like I went really quick on that one.
Yeah, we will also put that in the follow-up email too.
Yes. And as Susan was saying, the follow-up email, of course, will have the handout. And it will also have the links to the recording once that goes up on YouTube. So you can watch that at your own pace. All right, so without further ado, let's go ahead and welcome Susan Winkler for Intro to Excel.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. I'm really excited to teach Intro to Excel. Rebecca did a fabulous job last week with our intro part one workshop, and I'm teaching part 2 today. So if you are interested, again, we do put those up on our YouTube channel. So if you'd like to watch last week's video, it should be up and available soon. And you can refresh your experience from last week, or if you weren't able to attend last week, you can watch that as well. We will cover a little bit of what we covered last week, just in how Excel is laid out, because there are some important features that I think it's nice to have the chance to recall them again, or if it's your first experience in Excel and you're starting with part 2, to kind of give you that base foundation of where some things are located that are really important. So without further ado, as Rebecca said, I will go ahead and get started and share our handout for today. And we will get started. Oh, and of course, it's not going to start from the beginning. So hold on one second. Let me do that once more. And we'll share from the beginning. Okay. Okay, one second. I'm going to go backwards here. Bear with me for just a second. I, of course, see on my page from beginning, but then it doesn't want to actually go from beginning. So ignore this for just a second. Just one of those interesting little quirks.
Yeah, I think it's a Zoom thing. It like doesn't do it for some reason.
Yeah. We roll with it. All right. So today's class, Intro to Microsoft Excel Part 2. Thank you for joining us. All right. So what we're going to cover today, we're going to talk a little bit about our version of Microsoft Excel that we have here at the library, and that version is 2016. You may have a different version on your home computer. That is okay. A lot of stuff is still going to be the same as you're going through the tutorial and the practice, and as we're demoing things, a lot of it is going to be very similar. There are a couple of versions that are online, which we will talk about those, and they can be a little bit more pared down with not quite as many sort of bells and whistles and features, but a lot of stuff will still be the same or similar. And I can make notes of when that will be a little different. Okay, so what we're going to cover today, we're going to talk about entering data. And if you remember from last week, we used our example of planning a picnic. I always like to teach this class right around this time of year too, because when the weather starts to get a little bit nicer, I start thinking about wanting to have picnics and being out in a park. So we're going to use that same example again today. But this time we're going to be able to enter some number data instead of just text data. So really one of the things that Excel excels at, I knew I was going to do it at least once, put in a nice little trick like that, is entering numbers and then being able to use the numbers that you've entered, doing tallies and sort of doing manipulation of those of the numbers so that you can do calculations, and it's less likely for you to make sort of what my algebra teacher called math errors, where if you're doing it yourself versus having the machine do it. So hopefully that will stand us in good stead for a future. We are going to learn how to format numbers. So you could put numbers 1, 2, 3, 4, but maybe if you're actually dealing with percentages, you need it to actually look like a percentage and have the percent number in front of it or percent sign in front of it. Maybe it's actually you're dealing with money, so you really need to have some decimal places in there. So we're going to talk about how to make your format your numbers so that they are meaningful to you and to the people you're sharing your spreadsheets with. We will talk about formulas, functions, and operators, and we will talk about what each one of those things is. This is the one time where math will come into play, just because there is a mnemonic device that you can use for the order of operations, and the order of operations is important for your formulas and functions that you're going to use. And we're going to work with some simple formulas and functions today. And of course, like we said last week, if you're interested in getting into more complex formulas and functions, we certainly have resources to help you with that as well. Again, we like this to be sort of the intro getting started jumping off point. And then if you find that you become really interested in Excel, we can point you to more resources. Okay, we are also going to spend some time with entering formulas and editing formulas and copying formulas. This is, I think, really one of the main things that Excel does well and can save you a lot of time and effort, is being able to copy and paste formulas so that you don't have to retype that formula out every single time you're wanting to use it, and being able to edit them quickly. Okay. One of the things we will cover today is also calculating sums, how to calculate the sum of a certain set of numbers, and then a couple of different ways to do that, where you'll see the way that there's ways to do it where it may take a little bit longer, but you can be more specific. And then there are ways that you can do it where Excel will do parts of it for you and makes it go a little faster. Okay. And then we will talk about autofill. I love autofill. I use it all the time. Once Excel can recognize that there's a pattern in something, it can auto-generate the repeating things in that pattern for you, and it can save you some time and effort. And then we will, at the end, we'll talk about sorting your data. This is something we do quite often here at the library when we have to sort by certain parameters. If we print out a list of books and where they're located in the collection, and we want to sort them by category, so we get all the books that are in adult fiction and all the books that are in mystery, we can use simple sort and custom sort to accomplish those goals. And I want everyone to come away from the workshop hopefully knowing that you too can use the sort function to make your data more easy to categorize and see and use in the way you need to use it. Okay, are there any questions before we begin?
I don't see any questions yet.
Okay, so I will go over a couple of slides first here, and then we'll jump into the live demo. If you're following along on the handout, I think that Rebecca put into the chat too. It's going to be basically, I do everything visually right off of the handout. So you should be able to follow along there, but I'll keep cluing you into what part of the handout we're in as well. Okay, so some older versions of Excel. Well, first, Excel. What is Excel? So Excel is it's a piece of software that allows you to create spreadsheets. And in fact, each spreadsheet that you create Excel calls them a workbook. And then each sheet within that workbook is going to be its own spreadsheet. So I think last week, Rebecca used the example of a budget. So if you had a budget and you have sheet 1, that's January, sheet 2 is February, sheet 3 might be March, and then your workbook might be called Budget for 2022. And then you could have a second workbook that would be budget for 2023, et cetera, et cetera. And what is nice is that Excel allows you to enter and sort and filter and calculate and manipulate that data in all the ways that you might find beneficial, including going to the visual route of creating charts or graphs to help you quickly extrapolate what you need from the data and make it meaningful to you. Okay, so different versions of Excel, 2016 and 2019. Excel 2019 did come out, and there are some places in town that do have 2019 as well. Excel Online, you can get a free version of Excel Online using a Microsoft 365 account, which if you have an Outlook account, you can get an Outlook account or a Hotmail account for free. And then you do have access to Excel Online. It is a pared down version a bit from what you see here on the screen, but it does allow you to do some of the basic things that you can do with a spreadsheet. Okay. Okay, so to create a new workbook, if you're using one of the computers that we have here in the library, they are our Windows 10 computers. There are two different ways you can get to Excel pretty quickly on our devices here, and that is to either use the Start menu and click on the Start menu, which is the one that looks like the little set of 4 windows, and then find Excel in the list of applications, usually alphabetically. Or you can use the search function down here where the magnifying glass is that says search, type here to search, and you could type in the word Excel, and then it'll come up with the best match, which is usually going to be that program. And you'll notice that with Microsoft Word, it has a big W and is blue. With Excel, it's green and has the big X. And then with PowerPoint, it has a big P and it's kind of an orangey red color. This is just to help distinguish the different Microsoft products from each other. And you'll notice that they're all kind of color coded that way. When you look at the ribbon or the toolbar that's across the top of your screen, once you get into each one of those, in Word, it's blue, Excel, it's green, PowerPoint, it's kind of the orangey red color. Okay. Okay, so once you open Excel, you have the opportunity to pick either a blank workbook or a template to start with. You get to pick. If you start with a blank workbook, it's going to look like our example here on the right, where it's just going to give you some open fields or open cells where you can then start typing and start putting in your data. If you opt for a template, you can pick a certain type of template. For example, you could type in budget and find a bunch of templates that would help you get started with formatting and filling out a budget. And a lot of the things that the templates do that's nice is they've got all of that formatting, color coding, that kind of stuff is all kind of built in. Okay, so today we are actually going to start with and open a blank Excel document so that we can talk about the organization and how things are laid out. And then we're going to move on to our picnic demonstration where we have some information already filled in. So a couple of things that we talked about last week, and then I will pause and take questions, and then we'll start our live demo. We talked about how the screen is laid out, how things are set up. So in the top left corner, you have what's known as the quick access toolbar. Generally speaking, the quick access toolbar has the icon for save, to save your file or your spreadsheet. And then the what's known as edit undo or edit redo, which are the arrows that go to the left or the right. And then you can customize the rest of what's up there in that quick access toolbar by tapping on the little down arrow, and you get a list of other tools and icons that you can put up there. So I do recommend spending some time. If you find that you're doing something where it takes an awful lot of clicks to get to something, pop it up in that quick access toolbar so it only takes one click to get there instead. Okay. On the right-hand side at the very top of the ribbon, we also have our toolbar here. And then the first icon here is the ability to hide your ribbon or hide your toolbar. The second one is to minimize, which means you're basically gonna take it away from your desktop and put it down below in your taskbar on your computer. And then you have what's known as maximize or restore down, which will change the size of your window so that, if you start with an Excel window that's this big and you maximize it, it'll go all the way until it takes up the full desktop screen. And then the X is to close out of the file. So that will close out of not only the file, that'll close out of the program. Okay. And all of that stuff up there, plus the stuff in the middle of this area here where you see all these icons like chalk, you see paste, you see information about Calibri, all of these here. This is your toolbar inside the ribbon, and it's organized into tabs. So you have file, home, insert, page layout, formulas, data, review, and view. Those are your tabs. Within each tab, you'll find different groups. Like in this case, the home group has clipboard and font and formula, and then paragraph and number. And these, within each of these groups, are going to be icons that do certain things, certain functions that you can do, certain things you can do to your data or to your spreadsheet. And we will spend a lot of our time today, will be spent with the editing group over here when we're going to talk about sorting and filtering and using auto sum. And then we're going to spend a little bit of time on our formulas tab up here as well. So I'm looking forward to showing you some formula stuff. So anyway, I just wanted to give you kind of that idea of what's up there in the ribbon in case you weren't here for last week. If you weren't here for last week and you want to go back, Rebecca does spend more time talking about the ribbon and what's up here, so you can get an even broader overview of what's going on there. The name box over here, this is a helpful tool to know exactly what cell you're in. So each one of these little boxes is considered a cell by Microsoft Excel. And the way we name each of these cells is based on the column, which are the alphabet, across the top here, and then the row, which is the numeric along the axis going down. Okay, so your cell might be C2 or J5, and you're just going to use those columns and the rows to identify each of those cells. And then once you click on it, that green bounding box around it, that is going to be the cell that you've selected. And you'll know you select it because the green box is around it. And then in the name box, you should see the name of that particular cell. Okay, a little bit further down the page, the bottom corner, that's where you'll see your different sheets. So like we said, January, February, March, each of those be a different sheet down here. And the plus sign allows you to add additional sheets, and you can name them just by clicking in the word sheet 1 and then typing in a new name for it. Okay. The other thing I want to mention today in the bottom right-hand corner is your slider bar. The slider bar is super helpful if you want to zoom in a little bit closer into your cells where you have information, and to be able to better see your cursor and what your cursor might be on top of. So that's also kind of important. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and do the live demo for this part. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing the PowerPoint. Are there any questions at this point? This hopefully is kind of a review for most of you, but again, we always appreciate questions. So please feel free to send any questions our way.
I don't see any.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'll go ahead and jump into our picnic example here. So we're going to use this piece a little bit later for our picnic example. But I do want to show you those things we just talked about. So again, up here in the top left corner, we've got our quick access toolbar with our save button, our undo and redo, and then our ability to change things. Over here on the very right-hand side, we've got our ability to hide the ribbon or display the ribbon. We can minimize or move our Excel document down to our taskbar. We can restore down, make it a little bit smaller, or maximize it, make it bigger, and we can close the program. Okay, down in the bottom left corner, here's where we have sheet 1 and sheet 2, and then sheet 3. If I wanted to add a new one, just hit that plus sign. If I want to name it, just double click in it and name it like that. Okay, and then up here, the name bar right now on A1, that's where we have our circle here. If I come over here and I hit E3 instead, you'll notice that the column E is now a little bit darker and row 3 is a little bit darker. So you can see that you've selected E and 3, and then that you've actually got that cell there. So I appreciate that as I'm jumping around and bouncing from place to place, that it does give me that visual cue by being just a little bit darker shade of gray for me to know which row I'm in. Because sometimes I find it hard to track the rows as I'm going down the spreadsheet. Okay. And then down in the bottom right corner, we have that slider. So if I was to zoom in a little bit more to get closer to H9, and then I can see how my cursor changes whenever I'm hovering over things, and I have different actions that I can do. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and zoom out just a little bit. Okay, so I just want to cover any questions so far?
I don't see any.
Okay, I'm going to cover navigating between cells real quick. As we enter data, there are a couple of ways to do the entering of data and moving between cells. So the first thing I usually do, if I'm going to enter, and this is specifically for numbers too, if you have a full-size keyboard in front of you, you have the numbers that are along the top of your keyboard, and then you also have your number lock keypad off to the right-hand side. So what I like to do is I like to use the number lock keypad when I'm doing any sort of data entry, and I will tap the num lock button at the top left. I can show you here actually, maybe like this. So I'm hoping you can see. Can you see that, Rebecca?
Oh, hold on, I have to move my chat bubble here.
Okay, so hopefully with my video screen, hopefully you can see that I'm holding up my full-size keyboard right now. And this here is our number pad.
I can see that. I just don't know what it looks like on everybody else's side and how big your video looks to them. So they may not be able to see that.
So either way, just so you know, this right here that I'm pointing at, this is the number pad, and the num lock key, which is this key up here, is the key that I'm going to press so that I can use these keys here instead of using the keys along the keyboard here. Okay. And that's just because with data entry, sometimes it's easier to be able to move my fingers across the keys in that number keypad. So, and we'll spend a little more time with that later to go through that in a little bit more detail. But in general, when you're navigating between cells, you can use your arrow keys on your keyboard. So for example, as I'm typing here, hopefully you can still see that in the share here, that I've now typed in A1, C1, E1, and D1. Going between these, what I'm doing is I'm just using my right arrow key on the keyboard to go across this row. And then I'm using the left arrow key to go back. I can use the up and down keys to navigate between cells this way. Okay, so if you're navigating between cells, you can use those arrow keys. After you've entered some data, like cat, I can hit enter on my keyboard to move to the cell immediately below. So if I was doing, say, a list of animals, cat, dog, horse, hare, ferret. Is it 1 T? I can't remember if it's 1 T or 2 T's for ferret.
I think it's 2 R's.
Oh, sorry. Okay. Showing my, well, let's see if I did it incorrectly, Excel should catch me for spelling mistakes too. But anyway, so for those, I can hit enter and it'll go down each line as I'm entering things. If I want to go far away in the same row, I can use the tab key like this to get all the way over here to go cat. You know, if I hit enter, it's going to take me back down to the beginning of that next row though. So if you're filling out J, you've got cat, dog. I would use the down arrow like that to fill out that row and that set of columns. Okay. You can also, to go far away, of course, use your mouse and click directly on the cell that you need. Okay. But sometimes when you're actually doing the data entry and populating it, it's a little easier to use those keyboard tools to generate it a little bit faster. Okay, any questions so far?
Someone mentioned that their computer does not have a numlock key, and I should point out that if you're on a laptop, you're probably not going to have one of those because it doesn't have a separate number pad, just because, you know, on a laptop, you're trying to scrunch all of that in. So they usually just leave the number pad off.
So yeah, it depends on the type of laptop you have. For example, our laptops here at the library, we do have a number keypad off, if you can see that on the side. So we do have a number lock key, but not all laptops have that. And a lot of the smaller tablet size laptops definitely do not have that. So Rebecca's right. And in that case, you would just go ahead and use your regular numbers up across the top of the keyboard. Yeah, that's an excellent point to add. Yeah. Okay. So the next thing we're going to do, we're going to talk about entering data and specifically entering numbers, because last week we did spend a lot of time with how to enter text data and you know, how to move in between cells and things like that. Today we're going to spend more time on the numbers side of things. So I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing this Excel document here. And I'm going to go ahead and open our picnic example here. And we're going to go back to sheet 1, where we have essentially what was generated at the end of our last week, but we've added a couple more people. So we now have, I think, what do we have? We have like 10, we have 10 people coming to our picnic. Each of them is bringing something. We've got our categories for what they're bringing, and we've got their first name, their last name, their address, the phone number. And then what we're going to work on today is, because this is a picnic where everybody's bringing something, but we are actually super kind and nice, and we are going to reimburse everyone for what they bring. So we are going to reimburse the cost of all of these items that people are bringing for our picnic. So what we need to do is we need to create a column for the cost that they are reporting for what they spent for each item. So in keeping with our formatting of everything else that we've got so far for our summer picnic list, I'm going to go ahead and add a column G, and we're going to call it cost. Now you'll notice that when I put that in there, it automatically gave it the formatting for the rest of our picnic columns, because when I selected row 2, and I made all of these adjustments to making it bold, making the text white, making it underlined, I did all of that for the entire row. So if I did something in column H or column J, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to automatically build in that formatting because I've applied it to all of those cells in that row. And that, again, was something we covered at the end of last week's class. So go ahead and delete that one out at least. So now we've done we've got our column. We know what we're doing is we're sourcing the cost of all these different items that people are buying for our picnic. So the next thing we have to do is we have to go ahead and enter those numbers. So, and of course, I'm guessing about how much these things would cost in real life for the sake of our examples. So I've just come up with some numbers for us to use. So we're going to say that Roberta has spent $20. The tofu hot dogs, Gilbert has spent $25. And if you notice when I did that, where I put 25, you see how Excel is automatically trying to be helpful by giving us some possible suggestions of what to put. If I put a space, it's just going to go ahead and do 25. I can also, when I'm starting to type 25, and again, where I'm putting this is I am just going to go ahead and select that cell. I can put in the formula bar, which is up here. If everybody sees the bigger white square space, or rectangle, I guess it's a rectangular space next to where it says this FX here, I can type it up here and hit enter, or I can come down to the actual cell and just type it, and it's automatically going to put it up above as well. Okay. So, and again, that was part of what we covered last week about you can either put it in the formula bar up here or type directly into the cell. Okay, so our apple pie, we're going to say 10 for that. Hamburgers, we're going to say 15. 7-layer Jello, which sounds delicious. You know, I always realize that when I teach these classes at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, that I've just eaten lunch, but it still makes me hungry whenever I use examples like this, where there's sweet treats and things that involve food. We're gonna say 865 for pop. And you'll notice what I did there for 865 and for 7-layer Jello is I just went ahead and put a dot in there to represent the decimal point. So 14.5, oops, sorry, 14.5, and then 8.65. Okay, 5, and we'll say 1625 and 9.99 for bottled water. Okay, so now I've entered. Any questions about entering the costs? We're doing that as our first example.
I don't see anything.
Okay, so the next thing we're going to do is we're going to play with formatting these numbers into what would be a meaningful way for us to represent these numbers. So since we know it's cost, that means it's going to be monetary. So we can format a range of cells with numbers. We just have to select that range. And if you remember from last week, to select a range, you select the first one, hold down the mouse button, and then select the rest of the range that you want. And this basically has created a range for us going from G3 through G12. So now those cells are selected, and whatever formatting we apply and whatever thing we change is going to happen to all of those cells. Okay, so we are going to use our number group up here on our home. We're going to be on our home tab, and we're going to come over to the number group, because here's where we can do things to format our numbers, so in the meaningful ways that we need. Okay, the general up here at the top, if you were to click on the down arrow here, you can get a whole bunch of different ways to format your numbers and or certain things that you're doing. So for example, numbers are not always the cost of something, right? Numbers sometimes are percentages, sometimes it's the time of day something is happening, sometimes it's a date. It could be accounting, it could be currency, but it could also represent something else. So in the case of general, right now, having it be general is fine because we haven't selected something specific. Below general, you'll see some other sort of what I like to call the quick accounting format stuff that you can do. So if I was to hit the $sign here, the $sign will let me format each of these cells according to the specific monetary unit, and it'll also add a $sign in front. So if everyone saw what I just did there, it made it so that the default for the currency accounting number format is to add 2 decimal places and so it would be $20.00. Okay, because this is typically how we most often represent money here in our country. So, you know, like $9.99, $9.99. Okay, so that's how it would look if it was done with the accounting number format. Okay, if I wanted to represent these instead, let's say this was a percentage of a cost. If I hit %, that's going to change it to a percentage. And it's not meaningful when we talk about cost specifically, because it's not a percentage of a total. But if we were to talk about, for example, a budget, and you wanted to find out how much of your total monthly budget was devoted to, say, rent, you might want it to be represented as a percentage. So you would say, oh, it's, you know, half of my monthly budget, which is, you know, half, and the percentage of that would be 50%. So if I use that as an example over here, and I just put, you know, half, oops, sorry, helps to format it properly. If I do point, you know, like 50, oh, I don't think it's, sorry, I have to format it first with %. So, and then I put, you know, 0.50, 50%. Okay. Okay, so we're gonna, percentage doesn't fit in this particular case, but I want you to know that that is one of the formatting tools that you can use there. That's a quick one that you can grab. So the comma style here, we'll put the comma in between thousands. So right now we don't have anything that costs $1,000, but let's say for a second that we're getting so many chocolate chip cookies and oatmeal cookies and peanut butter cookies, and they're designer cookies, and they were made by decorated by a famous artist, for example. Maybe they would cost, $1,500 for our cookies. And then if it was $1,500, I could do the comma style. Oops, sorry, let me put that back. 1,500. And I wanted it, then you would see, if you could see there where the comma is added, so that it's 1,500, but $1,500. That's where you get the commas. So these are ways to do a quick shorthand version of getting the formatting correct for your numbers. Okay, I'll go ahead and put that back to 20. And we'll change these back from percentages to monetary. Okay, any questions about the quick shorthand icons up here for changing your numbers?
I don't see any.
Okay, and if it turns out that you want euros instead of dollars, again, you can select it from this little drop down list here. So if we were paying in euros, that would change it there. Okay. Okay. Another thing you can do, let's take away, we're going to take away our monetary one here and go back to general. Okay. So the other thing I just did when I'm sitting here with my costs like this, and it's set to be monetary. If you wanted to remove that, you could hit edit undo, or the undo button up here in the top left corner. Or you can go ahead and come back up here to where you have your drop down menu for your different format types, and you could pick general again, and that will make them numbers again. Okay. And the reason I did that is because we also have the ability to increase or decrease the number of decimal places that you're showing for anything that you're doing number wise. So if you remember last week, when we were first working with the telephone numbers over here, it turned out that it tried to put it into scientific notation. So if I come down here and do scientific, then it tried to make them all, I wonder if it'll still do it when it has the hyphens in it. It might not do it because it has the hyphens in it. But let's go ahead and let's check and see if I can. Nope. Okay. Let me just do a number over here then. Let's go ahead and pick. Let's say we have something that's, we're doing a science experiment. And in our science experiment, we're having to be very accurate about our measurements of something down to like the 10th decimal place. So with this many decimal places, if you need to increase or decrease the amount of decimal places that are being shown, you can increase or decrease the amount of decimal places just by doing that. So for example, with our $20, if we actually wanted to know that it was $20 even, we could add our decimal place in there and add our two decimal places. Okay. Any questions?
I don't see any.
About making it look that way? Okay, so I encourage you to spend some time playing around with your numbers and formatting numbers. Spend some time selecting your group, applying the formatting to all of the things in the group here. For us, we're going to go ahead and do it as cost, monetary, and then I'm actually going to, what I did right there was I just went ahead and made my column shorter, so that instead of having this much space between the dollar sign and the actual number representation, and that was something we learned last week as well. I use it all the time. In fact, I'm going to use it for phone number over here too. If you double click in between G and H, it'll automatically shorten or lengthen that column to the longest cell data. Okay, so the longest cell data will then make it expand or contract. Okay. All right. So we now know how much we're paying for different things, or how much people are paying for different things. So now let's go ahead and make sure we're keeping track of when we have given people the reimbursement. So when have we given people the money that they need to basically pay them back? So I'm going to call it reimbursement. And then the date that it's sent. Okay. So This is going to allow us to also work with formatting numbers. I'm going to go ahead and make that. We'll go ahead and we'll leave that one alone for now. In fact, we'll go ahead and, okay. So for this one, we're going to say it's going to be whatever date we have given, is it Roberta Wilkins, her $20. Okay. So I'm gonna, let's pick, let's say it's May, and we're ready to reimburse everyone because our picnic is gonna happen at the end of May, and we wanna let everybody be reimbursed ahead of time or right after the picnic happens. So picnic happens May 1st. So now it's gonna be that end of that week, and we're gonna start paying people back. Okay, so when you're doing a date format for a number, you also have a bunch of different options for how you want that date to be represented. So up here on the number group again, under general, you'll also see short date and long date. Short date and long date are ones that you can use to represent dates for things. So if I was going to say 05/2022, that's the date that I'm sending. I've written a check to reimburse Roberta. If I hit enter, it's going to go ahead and just populate it just like that for me. Okay, because that's what we have currently set up as our formatting for the date display. Okay, so let's say we do the same thing for Gordon or for Gilbert, and the same thing for let's make it, yeah, we'll do the same one for Lorenzo. Let's say Myron, we haven't paid Myron back yet. And then on the 6th, let's see, that's when we've paid back Noel. For Violet, we'll do it on 05/09. And then let's leave, we haven't paid back Charlie yet, but we have paid back, let's see. And of course, I'm just coming up with random dates and times here. We could even do, that for someone, we didn't pay them back until a month later. Maybe they didn't get us their receipts early enough. So we had to wait till the next time we could write checks and pay our budget. And 6. And then 5. Let's do 10. Okay. So if this works for you and this is good enough for you to know that this was the date that these things were happening, that's perfectly fine. This is known as the short date format. But I tend to prefer the long date format, so I want to show you that. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight and select, again, my whole range of cells here. And then I'm going to come up to date, and I can pick long date instead. And that will actually give me the day of the week too. And I kind of like knowing the day of the week that something's happened. So I tend to like this date version instead. You can also spend some time with the dialog launcher box here for number format if you want to customize these things even more. So let's go ahead and explore that just a little bit. I'm going to ask first if there are any questions about doing the short date format and long date format, excuse me. And I'll take a sip of my water here, and then we can explore the more customizable options.
So I don't see any questions so far.
Okay, excellent. Okay, so we can come up here. So I'm going to go ahead and we'll play with our long date format here. I'm going to come up to the number format, the number group, and I'm going to pick the number format dialog box here, which is the little box. I'm hoping everybody can see the little box with the little down arrow right here in the right corner.
Yes.
You have this in each. So for like clipboard, font, alignment, it's the ability to get to those more options that you can use to customize and change what you need to change. And there's several of them. You'll see them on various other groupings too. In some cases in like Word and PowerPoint, you'll see them there too. So, okay, so we're gonna go ahead and hit that number. And here we bring up the date. Okay, so we're in our number format alignment here. Okay, and now we can change, and notice that the category here, this follows what we saw before with this general pull down menu here. But now we have more options too. So general, number, currency, accounting, date, time, percentage, all of those things are still there. But notice that on the right-hand side now, we have a sample of what things will look like and how we can change them. So our short version was, 3/14, which is the day, the month and the day. Now, if I also want the year, I could do the shorthand where it's the day, the month, the day, and the year. I could also switch it so that it's words instead of the dates spelled out. And instead it just is, the 14th of Mar or the 14th of Mar of 2012. So you see that you have more customization that you can do based on how you want it to look. Okay. You can even, I think, if you're in Europe, you can switch it so that it's the day, then the month, then the year, which is how they do their days of their dates over there. But in this case, so if I changed my locale to Europe, I could do it that way. But since we're here, we'll go ahead and pick one of these options. So does anyone in the crowd want to pick which way they want our date to be represented from the various options here? We can either have the day listed out, we could have, the day, month, year. We could have it listed as the month and then the year. It's really up to us. You can even get so refined as to also have the time of day too. So if we wanted to make sure we wrote that check at 1:30 p.m. on, that particular date. Anybody have a preference?
I don't see anything in the chat so far.
Okay, I kind of have a preference for liking the long date, but I will tell you, if you're trying to make your spreadsheet fit entirely on one page and you need to do some formats and edits so that it'll fit on one page, this is a great example of where the long date format is going to make that column much wider and longer. Whereas if you were to pick the version that's just the numbers with the like this, that's a much smaller category, right? So if I was to move it over and then, just format my top cell to wrap the text, it would take up a lot less room. However, I do like my dates with the days. So I'm going to go ahead and make it the long date for now. Okay. All right. Any questions about that?
Nope, I don't see any.
Okay, nothing so far. All right. Now we're going to get into a little bit more of the I was going to use another food analogy and say the meat and potatoes, but now we're going to get into the really fun functions and formulas and things that can really help you do the math functions that you might need. Okay, so we're going to talk a little bit about formulas and functions and operators. So I'm going to leave the live demo for just a second and go back to the PowerPoint so that we can talk about, so here's the stuff that we just covered. Formatting of the numbers using the percentage and using the dates. And now we're going to talk about formulas, functions, and operators. So I'm hoping, Rebecca, that you can see this page.
Yes.
The PowerPoint. Okay. So formulas are what allow Excel users to do calculations with numbers and symbols and operators. So the formulas are entered into the cell where you want the results to be displayed. And you have to have an equal sign, because the equal sign is what tells Excel to perform the operation and perform that calculation. So every time you do whatever numbers in one cell plus whatever numbers in another cell, you're going to want to put an equal sign in front of where you want the result to be. And this will make more sense when we do the live demo too, but I just want to go over what these things are first. So a function is a predefined formula that does a specific calculation using values in a particular order. For example, sum. So the sum would be the addition of, cell 1 plus cell 2, and you're going to get, so if cell 1 that had the number 2 in it, cell 2 had the number 2 in it, then you would say equals, and in cell 4 you put 3. Okay. So did I do that right just now in my head? I might not have done that right in my head. I'll show you a live demo in just a second. My math skills this time of the afternoon. But common functions include things like a count. So if you have a number of cells and you want to say, okay, how many of these cells have some kind of data in them? That would be a count. The average would be, for example, how much do I spend in groceries? What's my average over a whole year? So you would add up how much you spent each month and then divide it by 12, because there are 12 months in a year. And then that would give you the average. So some of these common functions, we have, Excel has the ability to basically generate those, the formulas for those functions. And all we have to do is push one button to get that to happen. We do have to know a little bit of how these things happen ahead of time though. So your operators are the things that you use in Excel formulas and functions, including the plus sign to mean add these two things together, the minus sign for subtraction, or basically take what's in this cell and subtract what's in this cell. Multiplication is represented by the asterisk key. So if you were doing 3 times 3, or cell number C2 times what's in cell 4, C4, and then division, which is represented by the slash. Okay. Any questions about that part? I know it can be a little confusing, but basically addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division are all things, all the operators that you can use for Excel. Okay. And they're represented by the plus, the minus, the asterisk, and the forward slash.
I don't see any questions so far.
Okay, so the next thing, and this is where, when I mentioned at the beginning that we have to remember one of our mnemonic devices for math, the order of operations. Your order of operations has to apply when you're doing math calculations in Excel, just like it does if you were doing math calculations outside of Excel. So for the most part, if anyone remembers this, I learned it as please excuse my dear Aunt Sally, which was to say that anything in parentheses will be done first. Anything with an exponent comes next. Then you would do multiplication, division, addition, and subtraction. So that's known as the order of operations. So in our example here, where we have our cell C3 plus cell C4, then multiplied by 100, because the addition, that function of addition, is with the addition operator is in the parentheses. That means in this case, you would do the addition first. So you would have to add that, you would add those two cells together first, and then multiply by 100. So what you have here, this is your formula in this example. So if I was to put this into Excel, I would have to put an equal sign in front of it and then type this out. Okay. And we can do that example if we want. Okay. Okay, let me go ahead and jump back to a live demo to kind of go over this in a little bit more detail. All right. So we're going to jump back into our picnic example. So we'll jump a little bit below for a couple of these things. So let's start with a pretty simple, we're just going to enter a couple of pieces of data. So let's say, for example, we have, this is our set of data here, 5, 5, 2, and 3. And let's say what I want to do is I want to know all of these things together. How much is all of these things together, all of these numbers together? So for that, I would be using addition. And I can make a formula that I would put into cell A20 where I want the results or the total of all of these numbers added up to be, okay? And how I would create that would be the equal sign. And again, I'm gonna put this up in the formula bar. So this is why it's called the formula bar, right? Because we're gonna make a formula and we're gonna insert it. So we're gonna start up here at the top, put my cursor there, hit the equal sign, because of course we need that first for whatever we're doing. And if we only have addition in our order of operations, that's okay. It means we can just add them along the row, the column there. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna say, all right, we're in our first cell is A16, and I wanna add, so I'm gonna use the addition sign, which if you use the shift and the key right next to the backspace key on your keyboard is both the equal sign and the addition sign. Sorry, both addition and equals, but make sure if you hit shift, you're going to get the equal sign, the plus sign. So we've got cell A16, and Excel is actually really kind too, because if you'll notice, does everyone see how cell A16 is now outlined in blue here?
Yes.
Okay, so Excel is helping us out. It's also, notice how the color change up here, where it's A16 is blue. Excel is trying to help us while we're generating our formula to make sure we're picking the correct cells, the cells that we really want in our formula. Okay, so then I would do A17, and you'll notice A17 is now red, plus A18, plus A19. Okay, so these are my 4 cells that I want to add together. And this is my formula to make that happen. Okay, now to have Excel actually calculate the formula, I do have to hit the enter key. When I hit the enter key, that means Excel will actually perform that arithmetic expression and give us our results. Okay, so I hit enter and we get 15. Okay, questions? Hoping that all made sense.
I don't see any.
Okay, perfect. So that is the one way to enter the formula. So you enter the cell up here in the formula bar, and then make it do whatever you need to do, and then you can get it down below. So if we were to do a similar one to what we just did, where we put a parentheses and we did it, A16 plus A17 equals, and then we wanted to multiply it by 100. It's exactly how we would do it, and we'd hit enter. Okay. So again, then when you click where your formula is, what you will see in the formula bar is the formula itself. And what you will see, oops, sorry, hold on, ignore what I just did. You'll see the formula in the bar across the top here, and the results of the calculation appear in the cell. Okay, hopefully that makes sense. Okay, so you can type the entire formula into the cell and press the enter key, or you can type it into the formula bar, either one, just like you can when you enter data. Okay, good. Okay, I'm going to pause for just a second, take another sip. And then we'll talk about how to edit a formula. So let's say that I've got my list up here for these 4, and let's say I actually didn't want cell 18, A18. To edit a formula, as long as your cursor and has selected the result where the results live, so where the formula is, you can then go up to your formula bar and you can edit that formula. So if I come up here, I can tap with my cursor, and then I can delete out whichever one I didn't want. Now, when you do it that way, you just want to make sure you also don't forget to delete out those operators. So wherever you see the plus sign, the minus sign, the multiplication, division, all that stuff, you just want to make sure you remember to pull that operator out too. So let's say I actually only want A16, A17, and A19. You'll notice Excel has been very kind and it has taken away A18. So A18 doesn't have any color around it anymore. Okay, and then again, same thing, hit enter, and it'll give you your result. Okay. Okay, you can click on the cell within the formula that has the formula and then take it out. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and let's put in some other numbers over here real quick. Let's do 9, 10, 14, and 2, for example. Okay, so now we have 2 columns with some text, with some numbers. And let's say we also want to add, let's say we want to know here, we want to know B16, B17, and B19, and how much those are all added together. We can copy the formula from A20 over here and see, and then move it over to B20 to get the same, to get the answer of column B, the result of column B. So let me explain that as I do it here too, and it might make more sense. So we're going to copy the formula that's represented by A20, which is this formula up here, A16, A17, A19. So it's cell plus cell plus cell. And we can copy that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and highlight up here. Okay. And as long as I've selected that cell down here, I can go to my clipboard and I can say copy. Okay. This is just like what we did last week where we were copying the text and moving the text. You can also do it with formulas. So I've copied my formula. Gonna move it here. Oops, hold on one second. Something wrong there. Let's go back. Let me jump up above. I'm gonna escape out. Okay, sorry. I have to do it from the beginning. So let's say we're gonna take this, what we have in A20, and put it in B20. So we're gonna take this right here and we're gonna say copy. And then we're gonna paste like that. Okay, did everybody watch that? I'll do it again here too. Just want to make sure it actually worked the time. I accidentally clicked outside of the formula, and that can kind of mess with when you're copying formulas. So let me delete that out. So the first thing you want to do, select the cell that has the formula you want, come up to the clipboard group, tap copy, and then the very next thing you want to do is select the cell where you want the results to be, and then select paste. And what that's going to do is it's actually going to change. Excel is smart enough to recognize that what you want here is actually in column B, so that you want B16, B17, and B19. Now, I will caution you that when you copy formulas, you want to be very careful in making sure that that actually happens where it switches from column A to column B or C or D or wherever, because you want to make sure you're not taking this one, copying it over here, and then having this still give you the results for column A. Does that make sense? Hoping everybody followed that. So you want to make sure you're using using the clipboard group here for when you're copying and pasting those formulas so that it pastes correctly. Okay, questions about copying our formula?
I don't see any.
Okay. Hopefully you're all hanging with me here. All right. So instead of spending all of this time making this addition where we have to type out A16 plus A17 plus A18 plus A19 plus whatever, if you have a whole lot of them, for example, we have 10 people here. That's a large formula to have to do all of that. So if I put down here, total, And we want to know the total amount that we've spent on our picnic. Go ahead and delete those out. You delete all that out. Okay, so I want to figure out how much we're going to spend total for our picnic. Well, one way I can do it is I can come up here and I can type equals, and I can do G3 plus G4 plus G5 plus G6. And you can see how that's going to take us a little while, right? It's going to take us a little bit of time. You can do that. It does take a little time, but it is your option. And you get to see all the pretty colors that Excel will use for the different cells. There is a slightly faster way to do it, and that is to use that function sum. So the capital SUM, sum. So when we tell Excel equals sum, and we give it a range of numbers, or range of cells basically, then Excel is going to understand, okay, I'm supposed to add all of these things together, and it can do it. Okay, so if we want our total cost down here, we can say equals sum, and then parenthesis, and we can put that range of cells. So the range of cells for us would be G3, and then we put the colon in to represent that there's a range of cells through G12. Okay, and now instead of getting individual colors for each of those cells, we now have the blue bracket around all of the cells that we've selected, because we're basically telling Excel, here's a range of numbers and we want you to add them all together. And then we close our parenthesis and we hit enter. Okay, and then we get our total amount of our picnic, total cost of our picnic. Okay, any questions about using sum?
I don't see any. I use sum all the time. I think it's the easiest thing instead of typing out the formulas.
Absolutely, because it's very easy to accidentally make a mistake when I'm typing out all those cells, and it's very easy to forget or miss one. Even though Excel is very good about saying, you know, if you notice that one of them doesn't have a bounding box in a certain color, it's still a lot easier to make a, shall we say, user human error in those without when you do it individually piece by piece like that. And it saves you time. I mean, granted, it's maybe 20 seconds, but it saves you time and it's a little bit more accurate. So I always like to show the initial, you can do add, but then, hey, this is a little bit faster and it can help prevent some of those errors from happening. So, okay, there is one other way to do sum, and Rebecca just hit on it for us, where so many people use sum so often with Excel that when the people, and I don't know which specific programmer at Microsoft came up with this as a tool, but there are some helpful tools where you only have to hit one button to get essentially what we've just done. So instead of having to generate that formula ourselves, we can use what's known as AutoSum. And AutoSum will do that work for us. It will even create the formula that we need. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and delete out down here. So let's ignore that, or not ignore it, but we're going to use another method. So there's basically 3 different methods for how you can add numbers together in Excel. Okay, there's I'm going to add each cell individually into my formula bar. There's I'm going to create the formula with the function of sum and a range of cells. And there's the third option, which is to use the AutoSum function. Okay, so the AutoSum function is up here in the editing group, home, edit. That's also because home is the one we use most often. You can also find it over here in formulas. So if you were to switch tabs and come to formulas, AutoSum is in that function library right here too. But because so many people tend to have whatever they're working on in Excel, they're on the home tab anyway, they were nice enough to add it over here for us. Okay, so what we can do here is where we want our total to be, in cell G13, all I have to do is hit auto sum. And did you all see how that just populated that same formula for us? And we didn't have to type it out or put it in there. So then I just hit enter. Same thing. So it's one click and enter instead of having to generate and think and do it myself. Love AutoSum. AutoSum is one of my favorites. I'm assuming that might be true for you too, Rebecca, since you mentioned you use it a lot.
Yep, I
Since
use
you have
it
to sum
when
things a lot.
Yeah, whenever I do my like budget stuff, it's nice to just click a button and have it do it for you.
Yes, and then there's less of a chance of user error in the math functions of it and everything else. So yay. Okay, so that's AutoSum. So AutoSum is one that we would definitely use here. You also have the ability, again, we won't spend a whole lot of time on this, but if you want to do other ones like that, AutoSum is not the only one that's up here. If you see, I click on that little down arrow, I can also do the average. I can count numbers. There's a lot of statistical functions and formulas that you can use, like the max or the min. And there's an entire function library that you can do by tapping where it says more functions. And if then, so you can get into logical expressions, you can, there's a whole multitude of possibilities of things out there, depending on how complex your spreadsheet is for what you need. You can figure out, again, I lean heavily on budget examples, but if you have a mortgage on your house and you want to figure out how much you're paying in interest, on your mortgage, there are functions and formulas to figure that out. How much your interest rate on your credit card might be if you're, if you're making the minimum payments each month, how much are you paying in interest over a certain amount of time? All of those kinds of things, Excel's got a function and a formula for it. And you can find a lot of them online too. You can go to Microsoft's side of things, and they'll generate the formula for you, so you don't have to do all of the mathematical stuff behind the scenes too. And there are lots of other financial planners and folks that have done stuff and put them up on the internet. So it's easy for you to find them and download them. And again, those templates, those budget templates within Excel can also help with some of those things where they've generated and popped in those formulas for you too. Okay. All right, so I want to talk real quick about some of the error messages and things that you might get when you're doing formulas, because I have definitely gotten them before and been like, wait a minute, what? Why didn't that work the way it was supposed to? So here are a couple examples of what might happen. The good news is that Excel usually will tell you if it's unable to calculate or compute something, or it thinks something is different or something's a little wonky, it will usually tell you. And yeah, that wonky is my technical term today for what Excel will do. So if we go back to where we were, we talked about this last week too. If your column is too small for your data to be represented, you will see hashtags. We did talk about that before. I think if I do, so if you see where I've just moved column G to make it even smaller, and now all I see are the hashtags, that's okay. It just means your column isn't big enough to show all of your data. So all you have to do is go ahead and use that double click between G and H right on the line and expand your column out, and then you'll see it. Okay, so that's one of the big ones that I see a lot, is when you get those little hashtag numbers. Okay, another possibility is if you have a formula where instead of a number, you accidentally tried to calculate something where it has text instead of a number in it. So for example, if I want equal sum, and we started with G2 plus G3 plus G4, like this, because Excel cannot compute the fact that you've picked something with text and something with numbers, it's going to return an error with this hashtag value exclamation point. And that's just telling you that what you've done, and if you hit the little, if you tap on the little diamond there, it'll tell you a little bit more about the error message that you're returning. And in this case, it says a value used in the formula is of the wrong data type, which basically means we tried to combine text into something that needs to be in with arithmetic, basically. Okay, and you'll also notice that it gives you this nice little green. Let me zoom in just for a second here, so you can see this. Does everyone see there's a tiny little green arrow in the top left corner as well? I don't know if you can see it. It's very small, even when I zoom in like this. But right between row 15 and row 16 at the top of cell 16A, there's a tiny little green triangle. The tiny little green triangle is also just an indication that, hey, something's up. Something's up here. It could be if you're dealing with a whole bunch of calculations that are similar across columns, and you get a little message like this, if something changed between one column to another. So for example, let's go ahead and do an example of this. So let's say we're doing 1, 2, oops. Okay, hold on. I'm gonna come to a new sheet. Let's come over here. Okay, so can you see the new sheet, Rebecca, that I just switched to?
Yes.
Okay, so let's go ahead and we're gonna say column A, we're gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We're gonna do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, and I wanna do the total, right? So I'm gonna do auto sum for 7 and hit enter. Auto sum here, hit enter. And then let's say I accidentally, I do equals sum, and I do, you know, let's see, C1 plus C2 plus C3 plus C4. And let's say I accidentally made C5, and then I accidentally made a mistake and I put a minus instead of a plus for C7. And I did this. Now I'm going to get an error. And circular references is when you've referenced the same cell that you're trying to put the results in. So because I put C7 up here, C7 is where I wanted my final results to be, but I can't put final results if I'm trying to take what's in C7 and subtract it. Okay, so that's known as a circular reference, because basically you're trying to put that cell in the formula and also have the results be in that cell. Okay, so I'm hoping that makes sense. And then the other one I want to do here is when I say minus C6 and hit that, you'll notice, oh, actually it didn't do what I wanted. So the green triangle in the left corner means there's a possible error with the formula. And then you can tap and see what it means. The circular reference error is when you're putting something in, basically you've got the formula and it's referencing itself. So the results are included in the formula. And then one other one, you might have a green error, the little green triangle, if the formula appears to be different. So if it was this, and let me see if I can generate it so it'll look like that. And I do C4 instead, or C5. Oops, C5 instead, and see if I can get it to come up with it. Okay, there we go. That's what I wanted. Okay, so if you'll see now, down here, I'm going to zoom in. Okay, can everybody see the green triangle? Here's me hoping everyone can see the green triangle here.
I can see it.
Okay, so this green triangle means, hey, I as in Excel, just noticed that you've used the same formula in column A, and the same formula in column B, but you didn't use the same formula in column C. Did you mean to? Because maybe it was like a typographical error, just a quick keystroke error, and you really actually did want to include cell C6 in this. So when you click on this warning here, it's going to tell you that the formula is slightly different than the other two. So in this case, the formula omits the cell right above it, whereas in the last two columns, you included the cell above it. Okay, so you can say ignore this error if you intended not to include that, or you can say, oh yeah, you know what, update the formula to include that cell. And then that green triangle will go away and it'll be there. So that's just one way of Excel to try to help you make sure that we aren't making typographical errors too in our calculations. Okay. The last one I want to show that's a formula tip and trick is if you've tried to divide something by 0. So if my formula, let's do 1 and 0, and then I'm going to come down here and do a formula where I say equals, and should be, let's do, what do I do, cell 2, mine divided by cell C3. Oh, sorry, I wanted to do D. See, again, Excel is even helping me because I actually meant to do column D like that, and I hit enter. So this is an error message that you'll get if you're trying to divide something by 0, or you tried to divide a number by a cell that has no value. Okay. And again, same idea. You get the little message that says, hey, you've tried to divide by 0 here. Dividing by 0 is 0, so it can't compute it. Okay, any questions about stuff with formulas?
I don't see anything.
Okay, we're almost done with today's instruction. I just have a couple of other things that I want to cover that I think can help when you're working with data. So we're going to talk a little bit about autofill. So I'm going to go ahead and delete all of this stuff out so we can talk about autofill. And then we'll talk about sorting, simple and custom sorting. Okay, so we're going to use autofill to help us populate something in a pattern so that we don't have to sit there and type it out every time. I love this, especially if I'm doing something like creating a schedule. So maybe if you have an organization where you have volunteers who work certain shifts and you're creating a schedule for the week. And so you need to populate and you need to say, okay, you know, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, here's the week schedule. Rather than having to type out Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Excel can do that for you. And it's really swift. So I can type Monday and Tuesday. Sometimes it needs 3, so we'll type Wednesday too. So once Excel recognizes that there's a pattern, that Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday pattern, it will auto-populate and generate the rest of the information for you. And the way for that to happen is once I have typed these 3, and I go and I highlight those 3, because you have to tell Excel, these are the 3 things I want you to look at, and then I want you to anticipate that this has a pattern to it. Then I'm going to zoom in a little bit more so you can see what the cursor looks like when we do this. Down at the bottom of my last box, last cell that's selected. So everyone see that there's a little quick analysis pop up here and a little green square. I know it's kind of hard to see.
It shows up, I see it.
Okay, so this little green square here, when I hover my cursor over my highlighted selection, and it's this thicker white cross, if I come down and put it right over the top of the little green box, it'll change to a thin black cross instead. And that's why this is one of those things where it does take a lot of practice, and you have to be very specific with your cursor movements. But if I hold down my left mouse button at this point and I drag across to D and E and F, and we'll go ahead and go to G or however far out we want to populate our pattern, it's going to automatically populate that for me. And essentially for Excel, as long as there's enough information to recognize the pattern, it will do this for you. I love it. I use it so often. I love it. It just makes things so much easier because then I don't have to type out everything. It's great.
I use it pretty often for like numbered lists.
Yes.
Then you don't have to go 1 and then hit enter 2, enter 3. It's just like
Exactly.
does it for you.
So let's use Rebecca's example. So here, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, so I've got, this is a pretty obvious pattern that what I wanted to do is just keep counting out, right? So then I find my cursor and I go down like that and boom, there you go. It's populating it for me. It works with time as well. So if I was going to do 1 p.m., 2 p.m., 3 p.m., let's see if it'll do it even if I don't have the formatting. I'm curious. Yes, it will. All right. And note that it even did it the right formatting for the different times. So if I was to change these and make them so that again, number formatting. So let's talk about time here real quick. I think we have enough time if everybody's still feeling pretty good hanging with me. If I want to format my time in column A, I can also go to the number, come up here and pick time. And now this is how my time is going to be formatted. So then when I put 2, it should do, 2 p.m. No, let's see, it should have done it. Let's see. Yeah, so 2 p.m. we can do 3 p.m. and then select them all, do my autofill, boom, it's gonna populate it all for me. Okay, so this is one of those tricks that I just have picked up over years of working with Excel that because I use it so often, I figure other people would probably enjoy to know that this exists and it's possible to use it for things. So feel free to experiment with it, explore it, and use it if you find it useful. Okay, any questions about autofill?
I don't see any, but I should also say it does take some practice to get used to the dragging and holding on the right spot of the cell.
The trickiest part is this, making it be this cursor instead of this cursor or this cursor or that cursor. So you have to wait until it becomes this cursor. And you do have to give it at least enough to go off of. So my rule of thumb is usually 3 cells worth of data and then try it and see if it can pick up the pattern. It can do things like the Fibonacci sequence and, Pi Day just happened. I bet you could probably, I don't know if it could do, I don't think it could do pi. There's a different thing for pi since Pi Day was yesterday.
I think since you wouldn't be entering that into separate cells, it probably wouldn't be able to do that.
Yeah, pi is something different. You can actually just do pi to a number of decimal points, and Excel will do it for you. But at least with autofill, for dates, for times, for days of the week, like you said, lists, it can do all that for you. And it takes some means it takes less time to do things. Okay, no questions about that. I'm going to go ahead and head back over and we'll finish up here with some simple sort and custom sorting. I'm going to go ahead and take away my total for the moment. And I'm going to go ahead and finish out my formatting because I really like to have everything exactly how I want it formatting wise. I am going to go ahead and take away the borders first and then put a large border because I think this also helps us to be able to see when we're doing sorting, a thick outside border around our document here. And I will turn this back into, so it's not distracting us over there. Let's do that. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and sort by a couple of different options here. So you can see how sorting can help group things together for you. So the first thing I'm going to do is we're going to select the cells with the data that we want to sort. And we're going to use the categories up above to help us make that sorting decision. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to go ahead and select all of our people here. And let's go ahead and we'll sort by last name because at the picnic, let's say we're just checking to make sure people are here, that they show up. And the easiest way to do that is probably by first name or last name. So let's go ahead and pick, we can do first name first. Let's go ahead and pick first name first. So I'm going to go ahead and highlight all across because not only do I want it to be where I can see first names in alphabetical order, but I also want to be able to quickly see what they brought to the party. So I'm going to go ahead and select all of the range, basically from A3 through H12. Okay. And that's because I want everything to stick together. So I want the row for Becky Welch to include all of her information. And because we have a couple of blank areas here, like for Charlie Daniel, since our reimbursement hasn't been sent yet for him, we want this open cell to stay linked and tied to Charlie Daniel. So that's why we're going to highlight everything. Okay. And then we're going to come up here to editing, in the editing group on the home menu, and we're going to select sort and filter. And when I select sort and filter, I can sort A to Z, Z to A, or I can do a custom sort. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just sort A to Z. Okay. When I sort A to Z, you're going to see, oh, sorry, I meant to sort starting with first name because we want Roberta in here too. We're going to sort A to Z. There we go. Okay. So you want to include your heading just so that it starts with that first person. Does that make sense? I hope so. So not the way I just first did it. So let's do it again. I'm gonna go back to edit. Okay, so we're starting here. So I'm going to grab from A2 through H12. That means I'm also grabbing up here because I want it to sort by first name. Then do sort and filter, sort A to Z. Okay, then that gives us Becky's going to be first and Violet will be at the end. Okay. If I want to sort by last name, I can also sort by last name. So I'm going to pull my category together, come up here, and I'm going to do custom sort. Custom sort will then let you sort by any of these other categories and columns. Okay. So, oh, I guess I could also do sort Z to A if you guys wanted to see that, but basically it'll just do ascending or descending order. So we're going to do custom sort and let's sort by, and then we get to pick which column we're going to sort by. So we're going to sort by, in this case, last name instead. We're going to sort on the values that are already included, and we're going to make it A to Z, and we'll click OK. Okay, and then you'll see that Charlie is now first because his last name starts with a D, and he's ahead of Noel. And you'll also notice that the blank cell for reimbursement has stayed with us. If we didn't do the whole thing and we just picked the first and last name, this is how this will change our data, and we sort A to Z, it'll do it. But guess what? That means everybody's address is now out of order and no longer correct. So, and also we don't know who's bringing, it's all messy for who's bringing what and everything else. So make sure when you're using those sort functions, those simple and custom sorts, that you're taking all of your data together. When in a context like this, where it matters that it's all sorted together. I mean, we could also do a sort by the category. So let's say we wanted to make sure that we have enough main dishes, because we don't want to just have one main dish if we have this many people coming to a picnic. So again, sort and filter, custom sort, and instead of, oops, sorry. Again, this is a good clue too. Right now, if you notice where it says sort by Daniel, I'm like, no, I don't want that. Don't want that. That's not my category. Well, guess what? I had only selected A3 through H12, not my categories. So I got to make sure I select my categories too. Sort and filter, custom sort, and then now, okay, see last name. Okay, that's good. Now I can pick my picnic category and say, okay. Then we know, okay, we've got 2 people that are bringing main dishes, and we've got a vegetarian option and a meat option. Okay, any questions about sorting?
No, I don't see any.
Okay, so sorting to me is one of those super, super useful things I think it's probably one of the most important things that I can do with data to make my life easier when I'm working with data in an Excel sheet. Like I said at the beginning, you know, if I've got a big long list of books here at the library that I'm looking for, I'm going to first sort by those categories so that it's easier for me to get all the books from fiction and all the books from mystery and all the books from nonfiction at the same time. So I use sort a lot. The other section here about filters, filtering is basically another way where you can pick data that will show you only people who do certain things. So for example, with filter, I could filter so that, and this isn't actually in your handout, but since we just have a couple extra minutes here to filter, when I filter, now that I have these pull down menus, I can filter by certain parameters. So, and then only show those results. So if I only wanted to see the people who brought main dishes out of my whole spreadsheet, I could select here, okay, I only want to see main dish and hit okay. And then it's only going to show me those folks that are bringing main dishes. So that's also filtering, which is also a really helpful way to get just the information that you want to see at the time you want to see it. Okay, so if you think about a spreadsheet where you have thousands and thousands of records or thousands and thousands of people, and you only want to see people who fall into a certain category, filtering is one way to get it to pare down. And your data isn't lost. Your data is still there. All you have to do, you know, you can hit undo, or you can just take the filter away to get it back. And that's not actually in your hand in the handout because we cover the sort but not the filter. But that is how filtering basically works. Okay. Okay.
So someone is asking, can you please do filter one more time?
Yeah, absolutely. And we can add this, since I decided to throw it in here at the end. It's your your bonus your bonus lesson. I can add a bit about it to the handout before we send out the final version of it in the email. Sorry, Rebecca, I kind of threw that out there. Our job is never done, right? So yes, so for filtering, essentially what you would do is come up to sort and filter, and you just select filter here. If I uncheck it, it goes away. Sort and filter, filter. Select your range. So A2 through H12, come up to sort and filter, select filter, and then you can filter by certain categories and things. So let's say I wanted to say, all right, how many people am I going to have to pay more than $10, right? Come over here and go, okay, more than 10, and you just uncheck the ones. And then you're like, okay, so there are 2 people so far. Let's see. Okay. These are all the people I'm going to have to pay more than $10 or more. And then I know. And again, when you're done with it, you can just clear the filter from cost, which is right here. And then it'll bring back all your data. Or you can come up here to the top and just clear. So either way. Okay, and that's filter. It works really, really well when you have something like this where it's lots of people or lots of data sets where there's lots of kind of movable pieces and categories and things to do that filter. Okay, I think that's everything I have. Are there questions or anything you'd like to see again from today's
Someone
workshop?
is asking, can you do another filter at the same time?
Yes, you can. You can do multiples. Yes. Oh, sorry. I think I just accidentally hit my volume button. Yes, you can do multiple filters at the same time. Yes. So if I wanted to do, let's go ahead and pick everything here. Let's go ahead and let's filter by, what's a good one? Let's do drinks first and say, okay. And then let's also say cost is going to be over $5. So not $5, but over $5. Okay. And then you'll have, and the ones that the categories that you're filtering by, they will have the little symbol here. Instead of just having a down arrow, they'll have the little symbol for the funnel for filtering. So this tells me I have filtered my whole list down to just drinks and a cost of over $5. Okay. Yeah, so you can, and you know, the more complex your spreadsheet, the more filters you may have. You know, people use it for figuring out which branch made the most money based on volume of sales, or, you know, any kind of thing like that too. And then to clear it, I can come to here again, and I can say clear filter from picnic category, or I can come up to the top and I can say clear right here, and that'll clear everything. And I'll add that to the handout for next time. We got through everything so quickly that we had a little bit of extra time to add something new at the end. Would anyone like to see anything again or have other questions? If not, I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing, and then I'll share the additional resources from the PowerPoint here. Okay, so we did our editing. And like I said, I use that I use AutoSum all the time. That is my favorite function, and autofill. Actually, I use both of those a lot. And then we do have some additional resources. Gale Courses, which we offer through the library with a CPL card, does have a series of courses for Excel. There's a beginning, intermediate, and advanced Excel course. Those are 6-week courses. They do have professors that teach them, and you do have the chance to interact with them in a discussion section as well. We also have GCF Learn Free, which does not require a CPL card. They have an intro to Excel as well. And several resources within LinkedIn Learning. If you have a CPL card or you want to come in and use it in-house for Microsoft Excel training. And then there's also, and I didn't really talk about keyboard shortcuts, so I'm glad we put that in the additional resources. If you are someone who prefers keyboard shortcuts instead of using the mouse, keyboard shortcuts do work throughout Excel as well. And there is a list that's available through Microsoft's support page. And then, of course, we always offer our Book a Librarian appointments. You can schedule one-on-one time with a staff member. You can reach out to us via live chat or email. You can watch the webinars on YouTube. I made a new word. Anytime you want. They're available 24/7 on the library's YouTube channel. You could watch last week's Excel stuff, pause it throughout, practice, try stuff. You can certainly come into the library and use our computers, which have Excel on them, and watch the tutorials and follow along. And of course, today's will be up probably by next week as well. And then I wanted to advertise that our PowerPoint workshops are going to be next week and the week after. Rebecca will be teaching those. Pretty similar, a great way to get started with PowerPoint. And of course, ask us any questions you might have about PowerPoint. And then I'm super excited to promote this. We have our first virtual reality workshop coming up on April 11th. We have virtual reality kits that we have here in the library. And we have Eric Johnson, who's the director of the Starkville Planetarium at Parkland College here in town, who's going to be coming, and he is going to be talking about different space and astronomy elements, and we'll be looking at things through these virtual reality headsets or also on a projector while he talks about them and explains them. So we'll do things like the Northern Lights and the Aurora, and we'll be able to sit and basically look at the Northern Lights through our virtual headsets. So that should be super fun. We do require registration for that one because we have a certain number of the kits, but folks can also come and listen to it too. So I'm super excited about that one. So I definitely wanted to let you guys know about it before it got out to the general public, basically, too, for anybody that's interested in that. And then here is my information if you want to reach out directly to me, both my phone number and my email address. And Rebecca can put her information in the chat too if she'd like. But yeah, we'd love to hear from you. We do have a feedback survey going out in the follow-up email too. If you would like us to do a third class in Excel covering charts and graphs, that's something I've been playing around with. So if there's interest, I will definitely put it together and run a class like that for possibly in the summer. So if that's something that might interest you, please do let us know. Either email us and say, yes, I think that's a great idea, or go ahead and fill out that feedback survey and put it in there that you would be interested in something like that. Okay, all right. I think
Someone
that's everything.
says, yes, there is interest.
Okay, excellent. That is, we ran one in person a few years back. And so I was thinking, you know, now is a good time to kind of run one again that covers sort of how to put that data into meaningful visual representations of data too. So good to know. Thank you. Thank you for sharing your thoughts there. Okay, I'll go ahead and stop sharing that. Okay. All right, and hopefully, yeah, if you're interested, you for the virtual reality stuff, you don't have to have any experience with VR before. It should just be a really fun, interesting discussion and talk about how different anomalies happen. Different, I think there's even some with the Neowise comet that happened. There's some images of that, and it should just be a lot of fun to take kind of a virtual tour. So. Okay. Oh, I think you're muted.
Yeah, it popped up. And I was going to say, we are also getting back to in person, so it's going to be fun for us to get back towards, you know, having people in and doing different stuff than just webinars.
Yes, and masks are recommended but not required. So if you're more comfortable wearing a mask, you're welcome to come to the workshops wearing a mask too. You're welcome to observe social distancing if you want. If you're coming for the in-person stuff, we've built it out so that the classes, we can kind of space people out in the room a little bit more if you'd like, so we can help meet you comfort-wise where you're at. So, okay.
Well, I don't see any other emails, so we'll go ahead and say thank you so much for attending today, and we hope to see you next week for Intro to PowerPoint Part 1.
Yeah, thank you, everyone. Have a great
Bye,
afternoon.
everybody. Enjoy the weather out there.
Yes.